It's Speaking with Gravity, and I am Curvin,
I'm D.
I'm Taisha.
and we're the host for a podcast that speaks on mental health in our community and how everything affects everything. With every episode, the goal is to have a conversation that's going to make you think, make you feel, make you do what's best for you. I'm a therapist, but this isn't therapy. It's a podcast, and we got a disclaimer.
While we serve as mental health professionals, the information and content being discussed during our podcast is not intended to be utilized or substituted as therapy. The purpose of this broadcasting is to share our personal perspectives through open dialogue about various content based on our personal, educational, and professional experience.
All right, it's been a minute, man. What, 3 months? Took a little time off to do some things and kind of figure out what direction we want to go in. How was y'all summer? In
Mine
general,
was okay. Yeah, relaxing.
I got braces. I got
Congratulations.
braces, yeah.
Welcome to the club, shout
Yeah,
out.
I know, right? Hopefully, I don't have to keep them on too long. They say only about a year, so I should be good to go. So we got a different outline that we're going to go with, and let's start it off with Twitter discussions. So we're gonna pick from episode to episode. We're gonna pick different stuff that people put out there, the masses are looking at, and then we're just gonna speak on it. Whatever our thoughts are. We're not gonna diagnose nobody and things like that. But this first one is titled "Is She Wrong?" So I'm gonna give y'all a story, and then we're just gonna speak on it. Is she wrong? So here it is, the scenario. My ex-husband called me fussing. He recently brought our son a brand new Benz for his birthday as a graduation present. My current husband had to get to work, so I told him to take my son's car because I had a couple of things to take care of and needed the Altima today. He ended he ended up dropping my son off at practice and told him to call me when he was done with practice so I can go pick him up. I overslept and missed my son's call to come and pick him up. My son called his dad, but his dad was out of town, so he ended up taking the city bus. His dad called me fussing, saying I bought the car for my son, not some grown man. I didn't like my son. I don't like my son taking the bus. That's why I got him a car and paying the insurance and the car payments. And then he hung up. Am I wrong for letting my current husband use my son's car? All right, y'all want me to go first or y'all gonna go first?
You can go first.
All right, I don't think she was wrong. This is why I don't think she's wrong. I'm putting myself in this situation, okay? I am no longer with this young lady. We have a son together. He say he don't want his son driving the bus. Me personally, I don't care if my son ride the bus. But let's say I had that thought. Well, I'm not going to give him a Benz first and foremost. I'm going to give him whatever it is. And secondly, I have to think about if I'm in that situation, if me and that young lady still together and I don't have a ride to work, I'm going to take my son's car, even though I bought it for my son. That's just the next logical thing. So when I give him that, and that car is now in their household, that car is a part of their household. So if they need to utilize it for different things, and not just my son, it's okay. Now, if it was consistent, where he was using it all the time, I might have a little bit of problem with that. But on this one occasion or two occasions, 3 or 4, nah. I don't. I think he wrong for calling her, stressing her out about one incident. And now, of course, we don't know the background. So it could be some other stuff that she did, and she just giving us this one. But based just off of this story right here, I don't think she was wrong for it. What say y'all?
D, what do you think?
Um, for me, I think she is wrong. One, regardless of what car I bought, how I bought it, I purchased this for the utilization of my son. And so, if I purchase something for my son, again with you, we only give one perspective, but one, she said I told him to take his car. So I don't know if the son was made aware that his car was going to be utilized. The other aspect of that is you said you went to sleep, so you took ownership when you told him to take his car. You should have made sure your son was taken care of. As an adult, I don't really like depending on other people with public transportation unless it's something I necessarily have to. And since her son has a car, if I go outside, I want to be able to get in my car. The expectation is not for me to have to need to go somewhere or do something and not have access to it. For me, it's wrong. I just think maybe communicate that. I do hear your perspective though. It's now a house thing, but I'm not buying the car for the house. I'm buying it for my son. So in my perspective, she wrong.
That just burned me up.
Yeah, we only have one side here from Miss Chanel or Nell, not sure how she pronounces it. I think she was wrong because, again, kind of echoing what Dee said, the father purchased the car specifically for the son. She indicated that she needed her Altima for that day. She didn't specify whether she needed to take it to get service, but I felt if she knew her current husband had to get to work, use my car, I'll at least drive my son's car, if anything, or I'll take my son to school. And then once I'm done possibly running my errands, maybe drop it off. Or if you can meet me on lunch break to come pick me up and I'm at home. That way you both have vehicles because I'm at home anyway and I've done my things for the day. So nobody is bothered and nothing is out of sync. And that's, again, if the current husband could have, left work maybe during lunch or whatever the case may be. But if I was the father, I probably would have been a little upset. And even the son. I just got my car. I don't care if it was a Honda or a Benz. It really doesn't matter the type of car either. And what needed to be done or who had to get where. That's his car. And he didn't get picked up from practice on time and had to ride the bus. Granted, there's nothing wrong with riding the bus, but at his age, I'm thinking my father purchased me a car. I ain't got to ride the bus no more. And it's a Benz. Oh, yeah. And then the first day, I'm not going to say this is the first time he got the car or whatever, or this would have been the first time he was driving it because it doesn't state it, but I probably would have been a little in my feelings too.
I mean, I get, can I just, typically we say what we're going to say and then we move on. But I want to say, I get that he got a Benz. I got that. I got that we left him at practice. I'm going to sound mean here, but who cares? When I say who cares, I mean, okay, so you got left at practice. You call your mom missed your call. Sometimes moms miss calls. Oh, I could be wrong. Okay.
Go ahead, Dee.
Go ahead.
Moms don't never miss calls?
She overslept.
She overslept. Secondly, at this point, he has graduated. He is now, I'm assuming either we're talking about high school or...
I'm assuming high school.
High school?
Yeah, that's what
right.
I thought.
He's 18. He's a young adult at this point. So he's still in your household, but he is a young adult. He has rights to something that was purchased for him. This is his property. Again, I even like the solution practice that Taisha mentioned. This could have been better planning because if he had not had a car, how would you have worked out what you and your your present husband had to do? What have y'all been doing in these circumstances before? Now, I understand that this is an additional source and we utilize it, but again, I just think it goes back to taking the ownership of you gotta facilitate that thing. So you need to make sure that you're gonna follow up with it, and that needs to be communicated in that way. And so for me, I don't know if it's the first time it happened or what, but definitely something I wouldn't want to be a reoccurring situation. And I'm not going to say that my present husband has a right to take my son's car, and especially since you're saying he had to go to work, which means the car is just sitting there.
Exactly.
Unless you're doing some other form of transportation, the car is just sitting there. And
the son could have dropped him.
Exactly. Or the wife when you had to go do what you needed to do in the Altima.
That's the other solution. So it's just there's so many alternatives that could have been used. And I get in the spare moments we do things, but for me it's just a no. Sis was wrong. I think better communication, but the dad I feel like was wrong too because the perspective he came at it is a man, but it's not about the grown man. I think it's overall just the principle of things. The fact that he is paying the insurance, and that's another thing though. He's not on his insurance. So if he would have got stopped in his car, that's a responsibility that now affects his household. Now, that is something he may have should have thought about before he purchased the car.
Yeah.
But, these are things that really just kind of setting those communication practices in place before we go and make extenuous purchases like that.
I can see what y'all saying. I guess I was concentrating on the guy when he was like, I didn't purchase for a grown man. Like, okay, no, you didn't, but you don't have to come at her like that. Yeah, it could have been some other solutions, but you don't have to come at her sideways and putting the other guy into it. That was a decision, more or less, that she laid. Because she suggested to that guy that he get the car. And then my only other point was with the young man, it's okay for him to ride the bus, because it ain't. If you have to ride the bus, you have to ride the bus. When I say it's okay, of course there could have been other decisions, but if he ended up having to ride the bus, why can't he ride the bus? Why can't he wait on his parents?
He was waiting.
Well, it wouldn't. If they had looked at it like it's not that big of a deal, then this wouldn't have been it. That the man's response wouldn't have been what it was, and the woman's response wouldn't have been what it was to put it on social media. But it's all came from trying to make a perfect situation for a child. I guess I'm sounding bad because I do want the perfect situation for my child, but I understand if stuff don't happen. I mean, if it don't happen like that, it just don't happen like that. If I can't get there in the time that I can get there, you got to be out there and wait on the curb for 10 minutes or 15 minutes or 20 minutes.
And now that's understandable. But I'm assuming, again, that's why a car was purchased for him. So he is removed from the situation. You can move and go as you please. You're not waiting. And I don't know. I wonder if the wife, I mean, it could have been for any given reason on why she just ultimately said, my husband, babe, you can drive the car. But I wonder, what if he had to wait? You overslept and you were supposed to pick him up from work. What would the response have been? Because your son needed to use his car to, I don't know, do X, Y, and Z. Go to practice. And the car was going to be sitting. I'm just wondering, like,
I'd have been upset by having to wait. I don't care about the son waiting, but I would be upset about me having to wait. Go figure, right? All right, so... I guess it's a lot of ways that you can go with that. You can kind of, but these are things that we face from day to day that do affect our mental health. But so next up we got this QD of the hour. Ty, you want to take that away?
Sure. So African Americans make up less than 5% of the psychology workforce, and more specifically of the 41,000 psychiatrists in America. Only 2% are Black.
So this is a segue into what we're going to talk about today, which, D, you going to explain that?
So the field of psychology is enormous and has so many areas of focus other than therapy. Yet we have found ourselves in this specific area. We have a love for people and the desire to help in any way possible. Today we will talk about how we got here and why we do what we do.
So when did y'all know that y'all was going to be a therapist? Was there one specific time?
For me, I don't know, at that moment, I knew I wanted to be a therapist, but my interest, I guess I became interested in just the field of psychology or human behavior. I was a senior in high school, and I was taking a psychology class 101, and I was really intrigued. Just learning about the brain, learning about our personality, learning about, I think at that particular moment in time, we may have been studying Erik Erikson's 8 stages of human development. And at that moment, at 17, I was just like, oh, I really like this. And then I graduated and went to college. However, my freshman year, I was taking business courses, and I was like, wait, this is really what I want to do. Honestly, negative thoughts. I wanted to major in psychology, but me getting ahead of myself and thinking that I couldn't do it, I was like, I will settle for social work. Just not thinking I would be competent enough to study the field of psychology, but they kind of intertwine.
Your first major was business? Or what? Oh, okay.
First major was going to be business. As a freshman, enrolling in school, what do you want to do? And I was like, business, but I don't think I made it the first semester, and I switched, and
Okay.
then I was able to enroll in the foundation courses of social work. And also just having people come to me and feeling comfortable just venting and expressing how they felt and them giving me feedback. You're a great listener. Just simply, you're a great listener. And I was like, okay. And I like helping people, believe it or not. Those who know me know I have a unique approach of interacting with people, but it's really from a place of love, and always wanting the other person to excel, even on a macro level from a community standpoint, wanting the community to thrive and being able to have adequate resources available for people who are often ostracized. So,
I changed my major. I say this all the time, 5 times. 5 times. Now that I'm this far removed from undergrad, I can't even tell you what it was. I do know business management was one of my first ones. I do remember that. And I remember teaching was one of them. And then I ended up with psychology. I don't think we had like a school of social work at my undergrad at that time. So I didn't even know about social work. So I just went to psychology. And like you say, man, people just always gravitating towards me to talk. I kept hearing, you make me feel comfortable. Not that I was trying to, but you listen. And try not to be judgmental. So it just kind of, I didn't know everything that I can do with psychology. So even though I majored in psychology, I didn't know I wanted to be a therapist until years later. I just knew I wanted to be in psychology and help people. What about you?
Mine started in my childhood with my school counselor. She kind of led me into the arena of wanting to be in the profession of human and social services. And then when I graduated, I went into psychology. I did my first semester there and had a conversation with my instructor who said that he felt like I was very competent to understand the technique, but I had an issue separating myself from people, and he thought that psychology, was gonna be too much for me. He said, he said, I he could see the emotion within me, and he was like, one thing about psychology is that as you're beginning to understand it, you have to be very careful about it because you can ultimately drive yourself insane. So, like trying to get consumed with trying to fix other people, and after I went back, he was like, "Have you ever looked into sociology or social work?" And so I was like, no. He was like, you're really looking at it from, a wider perspective, not necessarily always one on one. You can do it in other entities. And so I changed my major into sociology in undergrad, and it just flowed. Like sociology just kind of made more sense. And it was along the actual practices that I was looking at. And then I liked the fact that it could be one on one, it could be group, it could be organization. So that was the other component. And then post undergrad graduation, just several of the teachers I had were social workers. So that just, social workers empower social workers, in my opinion. And so that's how I got here.
So, all right, so you did sociology in undergrad. You did social work in undergrad?
And grad.
And then grad, you did social work. And what did you do grad?
Social work.
Now, how did you know social work at that time? By the end of undergrad, you knew social work because of what?
Because sociology is really a concept very similar to social work. And so really being able to, again, look at stuff from a macro level is kind of what sociology did. And so, again, the pioneers, teachers that I had were social workers. So the connections, the stories, their understanding of the content they were teaching, it pulled me in that direction. And so, it just, I say all the time, I really don't know what made me choose social work other than, that's just, it just felt like home. Yeah.
So after I graduated from undergrad, I started working. And my first job was at a group home. And at the group home, they had like different levels. It was all boys, and they had different levels. Well, in that different level, I seen one day I was walking by and this guy was in talking to what I thought was an administrator. Well, it turns out he wasn't an administrator. He was the therapist there. And he would see, we probably had, at that time, maybe 60 kids. And I would see him regularly with like 4 or 5 of them. That's another story for another day, but I think all 60 of them probably should have been seen. But I can only tell or see where he was seeing about 4 or 5 of them. And they would come in. And once I learned more, I was like, okay, so he's a therapist. Now, at that point, I decided I wanted to do what he was doing because I felt like I could relate to them more. And I also felt like out of the 60, the reason he only did 4 or 5 because he couldn't relate to the other ones. Not that he was a bad person, but he just couldn't. He couldn't find a way to connect with those guys. And I felt like I could do, more or less a better job. And then I started doing the research on how to get into it. And because I knew I wanted to be a therapist one-on-one, I decided on community counseling. I didn't really know a whole lot about social work. And just listening to us talk about it, whoever's in your face, that's how you know about these things. A lot of times if we just don't see it, nobody ain't talking to us about it, we could very well be interested in it, but it ain't there for us. So, education is important in general, but making sure that, everybody knows where they can go, the different possibilities out there, different ways to make money, the different careers that you can be involved in. What was the challenges that y'all had along the way to get here to where you at now? For me, it was understanding how to go from undergrad of psychology to a therapist, because I didn't have anybody before me really going to college like that. I think my mom kind of went to college with me, and I had cousins on my dad's side who was way older than me that went to college, but I didn't have any contact with them. So I don't know how, I got to figure this out. And at the time, it wasn't as easy as going on your phone, Googling how to do this. So the challenge for me was just trying to figure out the path, what school to go to, what major to major in, what I got to do after I major into the internship, what all that look like. And it could be overwhelming if you just be like, I got to do all of this. But it's easier than you think once you really figure out, all right, what path I got to go down. But the challenge for me ultimately was just trying to figure out the road.
I'm trying to think because honestly, I feel like I haven't had as many challenges within my career outside of, I would say, what I feel is my norm, and I can elaborate on it later. But I had people along the way to kind of guide me. And that's why I'm so grateful for my experience at Johnson C. Smith University, which is a historically black college, because as I was, I think my junior year, I had the opportunity to do work study. So for those who know work study, you're able to work on campus, possibly in certain departments, and get compensated for it. My position was at the graduate school on campus, which assisted students to transition from undergrad to grad school or whatever career field of your choice. And my graduate coordinator highly encouraged me, along with my professors, to apply for graduate school. I was considering applying for graduate schools in the South. Strongly encouraged to get a different cultural perspective. Apply for schools Midwest, up north. Applied for University of Pittsburgh School of Social Work, and then there was when I really kind of honed in on exactly the type of services I wanted to provide, but more so on a direct level, so working one-on-one with individuals, because again, just remembering my interest in psychology, my interest, feeling good, when people would tell you, oh, thank you for listening, that made me feel good, or yada, yada, yada. So I guess I just kind of stuck with that and found my way. But common challenges, just trying to minimize the stigma around social work. I personally feel a lot of people don't respect the discipline or the profession, given, again, just the stigma and the myths. Social workers, we don't just work at Department of Social Services, and everybody doesn't, take kids. No, seriously. So that's not even a major challenge, but then again, it's still a challenge,
challenge, yeah.
right? That you have to get people to trust you, and to respect you. And although that's not my goal for people, I want people to respect me. I mean, self-respect is really all I need, but just to kind of put it out there to educate people, I guess. So that would be really the only challenge for me, I guess, because I'm very vocal. And anytime I felt that there were some potential issues that were causing conflict in my direct work of service, I would speak on it. So that's for me.
You had any?
I think for me it was kind of a complexity, and I don't really know if I see it as a challenge, but I think just really trying to understand myself and what it was I really wanted to be able to do. For me, the decision to what schools to choose, that was a somewhat of a challenge, but things were a little bit more kind of particular when I knew social work was the area I wanted to go in, because every school doesn't offer social work. So that kind of narrowed it down a little bit more. Looking at too, where I was mentally, whether I could go off or whether I had to stay here. And for me, I wanted to stay here a little bit more, so that kind of narrowed stuff down a little bit more. So I didn't really see it as a challenge, but I think trying to just understand what I needed to do, who I had to reach out to, that I needed to get recommendations from previous, people,
I forgot about
and then really thinking about how I'm gonna pay for this, the real aspects of it, and then the negativity of other people, in terms of, like Ty said about the stigmas around social work, but then also social workers, the thing that was poured into me was social workers don't make no money. Like, that's what was told, so I'm like,
I guess if you're in case management,
yeah,
only.
if I'm trying to help people, that was my passion, but I'm like, really thinking about, am I going to be able to take care of myself? And so that was just that challenge. Like, should I really be doing this, or should I do something else? Because, at the end of the day, people do less, go into less debt and make more money. So, what it was, but at the end of the day, choosing something that was fulfilling to me, and that maybe, would allow me to be in different elements. So, that's kind of my thought on it.
Even when you say that about money, that brings up a different point, because every field got basically like an average that you make, but you don't have to be in the average. You could be better than the average if you good, if you nice like that. You can be at the top end, but also podcasts I listen to all the time. Earn your leisure. The money that you bring in, you can take that and have, I guess, I don't know if residual is the word that I'm looking for, but you can take that money, apply it to something else, and have other money coming in while you do what it is that you love to do. So, I mean, it's education out there for how to take the money that you are given and use it for you to benefit you and your family.
And I think so too. What I learned, there's a pioneer that I had in graduate school who I'll never forget, when she stood at the front of our class and said, "There's money in social work." So it's also about the people that you surround yourself with, in the vision of what they believe they're capable of. And when she said that, I was like, "There's money in social work." Yeah, you gotta make yourself stand out with stuff. So looking at, it may cost you more up front, but in the end, it's going to be your lateral gain. So looking at, there's certifications, there's things that you can get and obtain that's also going to put you on a larger platform to be more attractive, to be able to bring more income in. And so, again, like, that was big, I think, just hearing from somebody who was in the field, because a lot of what I was hearing was from people who weren't social workers. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, they saying, I'm gonna be trying to help people come out of poverty. I'm gonna be in poverty. So that's kind of the mind frame you have, and really, I think that's the importance about education and all that, is just the knowledge and the information, and like you said, who it's coming from. The transition of generation where we were kind of getting introduced to a lot of the internet forums. You know what I'm saying? So now the information is more accessible, but when, like you said, when you were having to go and really have conversations face to face with people, it changes the dynamic of, kind of, that's the old platform. It was all about who you know kind of concept.
Do y'all remember when you said that about a pioneer? Do y'all remember y'all first class in graduate school and how you felt? For me, I don't remember my first class, but I do remember, like, man, I'm in grad school.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a couple of years removed now, so it's not that big of a deal for me. But at the time, it was like, I'm in grad school. I'm doing something that nobody else that I knew of in the moment, I think. And I could be wrong with that. Some of my friends, a lot of my friends have master's degrees, and I don't know who started first. I don't know if it was them or it was me. I didn't necessarily compare myself to them, but I also noticed, again, who you surround yourself with. Just so happened, a lot of my friends from undergrad, and I'm still in contact with, got graduate degrees. Mm-hmm. But when I went there, I was like, dang, man, I'm in grad school. I'm looking around at all these people. I'm like, to some degree, I've arrived. I'm here now. But y'all remember y'all first class?
I do. And it was with Professor James Cox. Never forget. My mentor throughout, graduate school. Again,
Really?
he's a black man. Yes, he was the director over the student services for over 20 plus years at the University of Pittsburgh. Put in his work and time, and honestly, I just feel like he was a father figure that helped me transition and adapt to the cultural change, going to a predominantly white institute, coming from a HBCU, but continue to challenge me and help me see within myself that, I am capable of delivering whatever I put my mind to.
That's what's up.
And just trusting my intuition, trusting my gut, and minimizing any potential negative thoughts, imposter syndrome, things that may have come up my way, because that was a challenge for me, I guess, now that I sit and think about it, really being in a space where there weren't many that looked like me. Although the University of Pittsburgh School of Social Work has a great, support system for people of color and others who come into the institution, offer great scholarships, partial scholarships, offer great race-based classes and just, theories around race. But again, that's the culture of social work. But shout out to James Cox. He helped me along the way when I was doubting myself. He assisted me. That's why I think it is important to have people who are supportive of you in your corner, whether you know them or not. And I didn't know Professor Cox.
We need to get Professor Cox on the podcast.
Yeah, James Cox.
we're gonna
forever remember him.
What about you? You remember yours?
I don't remember my first class.
I don't know what my class was. I just remember being there.
I remember the first day I went to graduate school. I remember the picture I took.
You took a picture?
I did.
Like, on your phone?
Yeah, I took a picture
Selfie.
of myself. So selfie. Because to me, it was another moment of me defying the odds. And so, really I had to put myself through undergrad like many other people who are doing it now. Also had to put myself through graduate school. So just being able to really not really know, but trust the process.
Yes.
And that's kind of what it was in that moment was, me being there. So when I was there, it was kind of like surreal. But I just really remember how dope my people were. My classmates, it was one big family. And really we carried each other through that process. Like nobody let the other one fail. And so, shout out to my crew. Tori, Elijah, Shanice, Lindsay, Colin, Lisa.
You had a whole crew. I ain't have no crew.
And all of them, we were classmates, and we didn't always agree.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We didn't always agree. But realistically, we had some very sensitive topics come up. We had more
class.
That's the beauty of being in a classroom setting, especially when you're dealing with social work, because it's in your face. Like we really, live debates. I mean, we had some very strong verbal altercations. But at the end of the day, I'm so grateful for the exposure of those conversations, because even though I don't necessarily agree with their views, maybe I don't share their beliefs, it really taught me how to be a better social worker. So that's kind of just what I'm grateful for when it comes to like the educational opportunity that creates, because online school's cool and everything, but that is really what taught me the skills that I have now.
Where did you go?
USC Columbia.
Okay. All right.
But I
ain't
did
had
their 33-month part-time program, so I was working full-time at the time. But that class was everything. My teachers were dope. My current supervisor now was one of my graduate instructors, so shout out to Miss Bird too. We giving professors say I got to give my people. Adrian Logan was a professor I had one time, and she is a phenomenal leader in social work. She is the voice that a lot of people need in the field of social work because she don't play. And so she was really a true Addison, because she put all of us in a new perspective. Because here I didn't really feel like I had to apply myself, but when she came, she was like, "What is this?" so shout out to her. Deborah Tate, another one I had that was phenomenal. We just really had some very good instructors who guided us in that process. So it was a great experience. So I think the biggest thing was just getting started. Yeah, that's the realest thing is get started. Whatever you're doing, get started, because once you get started, is when you meet people along the way, meet the right people, it'll carry you through that process, and that's what happened.
Y'all making me feel jealous right now. My program was good. We did have some interesting conversations, but the way you talking, every class, y'all was really getting in depth into whatever that the focus was for that particular semester.
Yeah, it was real.
You had mentors. I was like, "What?"
Yeah, we had some deep conversations. These was some real live people. Altercations where selective language. That's where language became important. Like, what you saying? Like, I'm talking about you. What you mean by that? Like, that's the type of conversations and dialogues we're having. But being realistic in that moment teaches you, okay, how are the people I'm talking to perceiving what I'm saying? How are they receiving it? And so, it kind of lets you learn a lot.
Listening to y'all, I know what was the difference in my school and y'all's. I was at a satellite campus. I went to Troy University. So the main campus is in Alabama, but the satellite campus was in Augusta. So a lot of the professors were do you call them adjunct, where they associated with the school, but like they got a whole nother gig or whatever, and they wasn't tied to the school. Where both of you guys were on the campus of the school, and y'all was going to this university that was big university on the main campus. I was just on the satellite. You said you was at UC Columbia.
I was, but I did a part-time program, so we went to Greenville.
But so you was on satellite. You just had some good professors then.
We did. We had some adjuncts, but I think the reality of it is we had people who were really still in the field, and that is how I believe with our conversations were able to be so realistic, because we didn't have people who had been in the field, came out the field, hadn't been in practice for 23. We had people who were leaving their job, coming to teach us. So they were coming in, educating us in that moment, and so that was like real life situations. So when we're going through case scenarios, we're not just reading sometimes the cookie cutter scenarios that we get in textbooks where the solution is, this is this and this, and the client is always happy. No, this is what's really going to happen. What you going to do with it? So that's kind of the experience that was created. And so as a result of that, it made our classroom discussion so much more. Like, I literally would have my same class and go back to class. Now, I would continue to grow because that classroom really helped me in that capacity.
With speaking of scenarios and what we was doing in school, how do you think that translate based on what you experienced in school, your experiences since school up until now? What kind of therapist has it made you? So you look at the scenarios with the discussions that you was having, the experiences you've had over time, and my first answer is, this was a hard pill for me to swallow. I don't know if I said this on here or not, but I realized I ain't for everybody. I can't help everybody. I ain't gonna connect with everybody. I don't care how non-judgmental I am. I don't care how good of a listener I am. I'm just not gonna connect with everybody, and I can't get them from point A to wherever they trying to go. And it ain't my fault. It ain't. I can see the problem, and sometimes I ain't gonna see the problem. I have missed some things along the way, but that coming to that realization has really helped me a lot, and it's helped me to the point where I feel like I can still be beneficial because I can point you in the right direction. You know, I might not can't help you, but hey, try this person or try this route right here, and see if that's more beneficial for you. So, what y'all think? That was off the top. Going back to your past experiences in school, your experiences up until this point. What kind of therapist, or what has it revealed to you about yourself as a therapist?
Because both y'all looking at me, our viewers will see. It's kind of giving this awkward stare. I guess for me, and I understood this then, but until I actually got into practice and started doing the work, you can't save everyone. Although that wasn't my goal, but sometimes offering suggestions that weren't even asked for or warranted, and being mindful of that. Sometimes working with close friends and families, having to create those boundaries and remind myself, of how I can contribute and help if, again, it's asked or wanted. Trusting me and being authentically me and showing up as me and understanding that that's okay, because those who you are meant to serve and assist will gravitate towards you because you're authentically you. So I'm learning that along the way.
That's heavy.
And realizing when I need to take a moment to step back. And I've always been an advocate of that. Dee could probably echo this. When we work together at the Department of Mental Health, if I need a day, I need a day. I cannot show up if I am not mentally prepared to assist somebody else. So I'm going to always choose me. And to others, that may sound selfish, but as you continue to travel this journey of self-enlightenment, unfoldment, you understand that your needs are a priority too. And if that means telling somebody else no, then that's okay for your well-being. And I've learned that along the way. If I'm not 100%, and I don't even have to be 100% sometimes, but the type of person that I am, if I can't show up for you 100%, I ain't going to show up at all. And I'm going to put me first. So I'm learning that along the way, understanding that that's okay. And how do I deal with it? I take a moment to step back, reflect, incorporate my own practices, and start over. Something that has been the most difficult part of my job, if we're going to be real, honestly, when I had a family member blame me for the loss of their loved one because that individual had made the decision to take their life. So they died by suicide, and the blame was placed on me, but giving my foundational understanding of social work, having great mentors, having a great support system, she's grieving, so I didn't look at it as this individual just blaming me, but I viewed it as someone, she's a victim too. She's lost somebody unexpectedly. The last thing the last thing you understood was he was trying to receive help, and the person who was in that helping profession from your view did not assist and help. So just being able to put on different lenses and not allow that to affect my overall ability to provide services or beat myself up. So
I know you said D can echo this, but that self-care thing is big. I find myself now taking more breaks. Those breaks don't have to be long. It could just be a day. It could be two. but just to really take a break and not think about cases that are connected to me, and not to think about any type of responsibilities that I have associated with being a therapist. Because you got billing, you got notes, but even beyond the notes and the billing, I think about situations beyond that office space.
Right.
Like if I'm reading something, it's like, oh, bam, I can use this in this situation, or a thought comes to my mind about a certain circumstance, and it's like, okay, I didn't have that answer in that moment, but let me go over this the next time. And that's in my mind, but when I take that self-care, it's like I'm cutting that out completely. I'm taking a whole day to myself. I'm taking a weekend to myself. And I love to travel with my family. That really, not got to make the money to do it, but that really helps me to re-up. If I can go out of town with them and just see them enjoy the world, even if I've been there before, that gives me like a little extra boost. But that self-care component is really, really big, especially the longer you've been in this field. And I like when you say, if I ain't 100%, I don't need to be there. Because that 5%, if you're 95%, that 5% could have been used to help somebody when, I don't know. I like that. Just I'm gonna give 100% the whole time. But all right, D, did you have anything?
I mean, I think for me, it's just the power of choice. That's as for a client and for myself. In graduate school and undergrad, I realized that people have a right to feel how they feel. Everybody has experienced something in some capacity. Everybody has a story. And so whatever avenue of life I'm entering a person or meeting a person who, that's only a segment to a lifetime experience. And so, even as their therapist, people have a power to choice. I just want to be, as a therapist, to help people make an educated choice, or an informed choice. And so, giving people the power to make a decision for themselves and taking myself out of feeling guilty about someone choosing what they perceive to be best for them in that moment. As a therapist, that's sometimes one of the hardest things to do, because even though it may be detrimental to a person, they have a right to choose that. And that's hard when you sitting here and you like, man, this is how that's gonna end. Even when it comes down to, doing certain things, while I want to, like you said, save everybody. I want to be able to help everybody. I want people to see me as that reliable source. There are people who can really get the information you're trying to give and still choose to do nothing with it. And that's their right. And so I think for me as a therapist, that's what I have learned. That my goal is to make sure that a person doesn't walk away from me and say, I did X, Y, and Z because I didn't know. Right? That's my focus is, let me educate, let me inform, let me advise, let me listen. Let me be that, or I did this because wasn't nobody listening to me. So whatever my role is and how I can serve you, that's that. The other aspect of that is, and I'm still learning with the self-care part, is really just learning what self-care looks like for me, and not mirroring it based off of what everybody else's self-care practices are. So that's kind of where I am is, what does that look like for me in terms of how I have to look out for me? What does D need? But also being able to recognize when I need self-care. Because it's one thing to practice self-care, but it's another thing for me to recognize when you actually need it. You know what I'm saying? Because you can do stuff out of routine, so it'd be like, oh, this is self-care.
Yeah.
No. But, it's another thing when you really recognize, I guess, kind of that depletion, like Ty said, of where you're not able to show up and give the best version of me. I can't say I give 100%. I'm just going to say I give you the best I got.
Best version of
at that time. Because if, we're going through things in our own self, I can't guarantee you that I am going to be at 100%. But when I show up, I'm gonna show up being the best that I'm able to give you at that moment. So, that's just kind of my thought.
What's and we're in on this one. What's the most difficult part, Ty? You already basically said it. For you when you was talking about the suicide situation. But what has been the most difficult part of the job itself, the job that we do every day? And I think I kind of said it too. It goes home with me. I am thinking about it. I'm gonna think about it today at some point because I'm not like
Right.
zoned out today. So at some point, I'm gonna think about something that's connected to me, some situation that I've talked about this past week, or maybe even last week, So always having that on me, in addition to the other things that I'm involved in. So it's not just quote unquote a caseload, but then you got your other stuff that you do that you're responsible for. I'm responsible for my family. I'm responsible for other organizations or groups that I'm a part of, and I have things to go along with that. So with me taking this home, I can't just disconnect on a consistent daily basis. I can't just disconnect. The only time I'm able to disconnect is when I do my self-care, when I'm gone for 3 days. I'm gone for 2 days or a day. Sometimes it's a day. That day don't last. That re-up don't last as long when I just do one day. But so that's the most difficult part for me, is always taking it home. What say you?
I think mine is. I think my is a two-edged sword, because I think the most difficult part is for me is I can't save everybody.
Oh, well, yeah.
Opportunities, you change outcomes, and so the reality is you want to be so much for so many people, but being truthful, you can't. And so that's probably my biggest challenge in the most difficult part of this job, is because while I have to be okay with it, it still doesn't stop the blow. You know what I'm saying? You still feel the hit. So that's just kind of my action.
All right, Ty, you had anything you want to add? We're going to bring it to an end here.
I just think that's the beauty of, like you said, being able to realize, when do I actually need a quote unquote self-care moment? And I think that's where a heavy routine we can incorporate within our daily practices. I'm practicing, or I'm engaging in self-care techniques daily, to the point where it's become a habit. So when I know, wait, something isn't aligning with me, I'm feeling off balance. What do I need to do to check in with self to see what I need to do to move forward? But if I'm engaging in these routine, habitual practices daily, I think they can kind of minimize when we oftentimes are burned out. We experience compassion fatigue, or we simply just ain't got enough to give nobody other than ourselves. And then I commend you both, not only showing up for yourself, but showing up for your family members, showing up for your children, and showing up for your patients. I mean, I got family members and stuff too. Don't get me wrong, these two have families. This is just me, so I can easily come home and just, it's just me. But when you have other people who want that attention and time that you guys, plan out to have that balance, I think it's phenomenal. So thank you all for being able just to carry that so eloquently, and still include yourself in the process and know when to say, I need a moment for me. So
I appreciate it.
y'all. No problem.
Same to you, though. I think it's a balance.
That's it for me, though.
All right, thank to everyone who has liked, shared, or supported the movement with what we're trying to do here to increase mental health awareness in our community. Just be on the lookout for this month. Gravity Counseling Group provides a BIPOC wellness group every fourth Monday of the month. For men, so we create a safe space for men to be validated, to educate and support each other. We discuss topics such as resilience, healthy relationships, emotional intelligence, so on and so forth. Also, on August the 28th, in a few days, we will be at a Power of Knowledge seminar in Greenwood at the Old Brewer Gym. That's what we're calling it, Old Brewer Gym. On 125 North University Street in Greenwood, South Carolina, 29646. The event is from 1 to 7. we'll be there from about 1 to 2:30 doing a presentation or being a part of a panel where young professionals are sharing their expertise in their particular fields, but there'll also be vendors there. That vending part would be from 2:30 until 7:30. So just come check us out there. And subscribe to Speaking with Gravity on Facebook and Instagram. We'll make it easy for you and try to put it into the show notes. Again, thank you for taking the time to listen. You could be doing anything else, but you chose to listen to us, and we appreciate that. We are therapists, but this ain't therapy. It's a podcast.